Good morning, Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for the peak day, September 10th, 2012 of the hurricane season. A look at climatology for the first 10 days of September, very active over the last 100 years, with the points of origin most plentiful between Africa and the Lesser Antilles, another clustering here in the southwest Atlantic, and then the Gulf. But notice how the Caribbean Sea really not much at all over the last 100 years, just a few random areas. And then the Eastern Pacific stays typically very busy, although this year, nothing in the first 10 days to speak of. And the next 10 days, starting tomorrow, things shift just a little bit. The Gulf stays pretty busy overall, Southwest Atlantic does, but we start to lose a few of these points of origin, dots out in the open Atlantic, and then we start to focus more on this region, the Southwest and Western Caribbean Sea. And that is where the second half of the season typically focuses, and we're heading there towards the end of the month. Right now, well, I'll get to it. We'll see how things just aren't favorable in the Western Atlantic, but that may change going through time. Leslie sitting out here, Michael, Hurricane, and this will be our next depression, so nice and busy for the peak of September the 10th, the peak of the hurricane season here. And a great satellite picture from the National Hurricane Center on their Facebook page shows Leslie with its large comma-shaped sprawling nature. Never was able to really bundle the energy right around the center. Michael did, that's for sure, staying small and sort of under the radar, if you will. This will turn northwest, go on out to sea. Leslie heading into the direction of Newfoundland, which is right here, buried under some cloud cover. And the main effect from Leslie will be in this right front quadrant area of the storm, where the wind will be coming in, and if you move all of that up here, that onshore flow, bringing very heavy rain and coastal storm surge flooding to some extent, but not a very powerful system, fortunately. However, heavy rains, gusty winds, and just all the things that come with a strong Atlantic tropical storm will move in and out of Newfoundland over the next couple of days. And then the remnants of Leslie will move up into the North Atlantic, possibly passing near Iceland, if you can believe that. Looking at the deep tropics, nothing going on anywhere west of 50 degrees longitude here, mainly due to a very negative phase of the NAO. Well, that's true too. But the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, a lot of sinking dry air through here, no divergence in the upper levels of the atmosphere. The air is cyclonic and more sinking and warming than it is rising and allowing for deep tropical convection to develop. The only place we see that is right here with 91L, soon to be Tropical Depression 14, I guess it is. And this too will develop and move like this and head out to sea. Why? That's that negative NAO that I snuck in there that I mentioned. Not enough high pressure sitting out here over the Atlantic to steer this on west. It's just not there. Not since 2008 have we seen a pattern like that. Only Irene and Isaac were able to get through this abnormally low pressure pattern in the Atlantic where these developments happen and then they just kind of go away, turning well east of the United States in many cases. And I think that that will continue through at least what this next system will be, Nadine, and probably even after that. We're going to have to wait until the end of the month when this region starts to become more favorable just through the natural evolution of the season. Most of the energy starts to focus back on that region. Now, one thing that tropical storms and hurricanes do is take heat out of the tropics. And as we look at the Western Hemisphere's sea surface temperature anomaly map for today, you can see the cold water left behind, cold relative to normal, from Isaac. And you can also see where Leslie was. That's Bermuda right there. And Leslie sat over the same area for about 2 days, churning up the water underneath itself. And then you see how the water cools, the heat being taken out. Notice too in the Pacific, that does not look like an El Nino to me. Yes, there are some warm anomalies right through here, but it's very weak. And you juxtapose that to the cold anomalies that have shown up right along the equator here, and then the cold overall PDO signal, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, in the background, this El Nino is just not coming on very strong at all. And so I think that we can expect the second half of the Atlantic season here to be about as busy as we should expect for a busy hurricane season. Maybe 2 or 3 more named storms in this region in the latter part of September into October. That this El Nino out here will not stop that. Normally when you have abnormally warm water sitting out in this region, you develop deep convection, and then that upward motion spreads across, the outflow from it spreads across into the Atlantic basin, cutting off the tops of developing systems. And without that, you have a more favorable pattern. So we'll see how that pans out. Adding to the evidence that the El Nino just isn't there is the Southern Oscillation Index, the pressure pattern in the Pacific. Right now, none of these numbers are anywhere near the -8 threshold that the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia suggests as being one that is conducive to El Nino conditions. In fact, the 90-day average is only half that number, at -4. So everything is indicating that the El Nino a non-factor, and that the post-peak weeks of the Atlantic hurricane season should be as busy as the first half of the season. Not hyperactive, but I don't see anything except the negative phase of the MJO affecting things. So be ready, because we still have a long way to go. We're only about the halfway point. Now, for the next week to 10 days or more, the MJO is going to be in an unfavorable phase. We typically look for it to be over here if we're going to look for active Atlantic development. That doesn't mean you can't have development when it's over in the negative phase that we're looking at now, but it's typically more favorable based on research and observation when the MJO swings over to this region right here especially. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. As you can see, all this right here means that for the next couple of weeks it's going to be stuck over anywhere from the Maritime Continent region, which is all through Indonesia, and that region into the Western Pacific. I'm going to wait and see if it swings around into the Western Hemisphere towards the end of the month and into October. Therefore, we know we have, if we see that, a lot more hurricane season to go. But for this week, nothing to worry about. Only up in Newfoundland is there the threat of any tropical trouble as Leslie passes through, but that in and of itself shouldn't be too big of a deal. It's not a hurricane, at least not yet, and I think folks up there can handle that. Alright, again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, my website. Always glad to do these videos for Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and I'll be back with another one tomorrow.